Kybalion is a study of the Hermetic philosophy of ancient Egypt and Greece, written by 3 initiates. The Kybalion contains the 7 Hermetic principles, which I will cover in 7 videos. These secret doctrines, based upon world-old Hermetic teachings, help us to understand the nature of reality and the nature of self. It's important that us as light bringers understand these teachings, and not just those who would seek to control us. Hence, I give you my understanding of them.
Greetings, my dears, in love and light. I'm Nikki Sutton. The 7 Hermetic principles. The principle of mentalism. All is mind. The universe is mental. The Kybalion. So the first Hermetic principle is the principle of mentalism, that all is mind. Now, I've often talked about this in many different shapes and forms, as it is interwoven into practically everything that we talk about in spirituality. And I like to explain the reasons why things happen, and this is a big reason why things happen, is that the universe is mental. So there's 2 parts to this. Firstly, really our perceptions, how we perceive reality based on our past programming. And then there's the other part to it, where literally science is proving that reality is mental, is going on within the mind. I'm not saying that reality is just made up within your mind. I'm saying that it's all going on in the mind rather than out there. For example, everything that happens has to be a result of a mental state which precedes it. So you might have the truth. Let's say the truth is a table. You have a table, it's just a table. You don't need to put any influences on that. A table is a table. End of. But depending on the person viewing it, they might perceive different parts of the table. Like they might perceive the colour of it first, or they might think, oh, it's a bit of a chunky table, or not a very sturdy table, or a table I'd like to have in my dining room, or not. Or there's different perceptions and slants that are put onto this truth, which is a table. So as soon as it's perceived through the egotistical mind, a human mind, it ceases to just be a table. It's now a whole host of other things, and each different person will perceive it differently. So the universe being mental and it all being in the mind is true, because we are unable to see the real truth of the matter because of our perceptions colouring it, because of our beliefs colouring it. It's like we each see the world through a different pair of coloured glasses that influences the way we perceive things, and therefore how we feel about things. And therefore we have our own reality each. Each of us is figuring things out differently, seeing things differently, perceiving things differently, and building upon past illusions and distortions and misunderstandings. And part of what we want to do is get back to the truth of the matter. Truth doesn't have to be subjective. It can just be. If you return to a state of emptiness through meditation and contemplating something through the glasses of emptiness, rather than through glasses full of perceptions and beliefs, then you can see better what the truth of the matter is. And then if we can get back to the truth of the matter, then that helps us to balance. That helps us to be more stable and grounded and less affected by things. The truth is the truth, and we can get there by resetting to a default point of emptiness or nothingness, and then taking a fresh look. Our eyes perceive reality, and it turns into electrical signals that go through the brain, and then we interpret it. If we didn't have that interpretation, then there would just be nothingness. So thought has to be there first, our thought, otherwise we don't interpret anything. But then there's the more literal idea, where we are interpreting an information-based reality, and this is being, interpreted within our minds, which we are then living out. And the way I like to explain it is that when you're sleeping at night and you're having a dream, that is all going on within your mind, and you know that, that's easily knowable. And you can walk around and do things, you can believe it's real life, you can even see your own hands, when really your own hands are there in the bed next to you. Everything is going on within the mind, no matter what it is, but you think it's real, you even think your body is real. But then use that, transfer that to real life. Is everything going on in the mind? And again, you think your body is real. Is it another dream? Oh, it doesn't seem like a dream. A dream is dreamlike. Okay, well, when you wake up, you perceive a dream as dreamlike, not when you're in it so much. It's possibly just another dream. It's a very detailed dream that our reality is interpreted. We're all in contact with a field of information, the unified field, as they call it in quantum physics. Our consciousnesses are all interacting with this one field, all of us individually interpreting this one field and having it as our experience. Everything is made up of energy, and on the quantum level you look and you see atoms and they're made up of particles of energy. So my body is made up of particles of energy, and so is the chair I'm sitting on and the table over there. It's all energy, but it doesn't seem like it. How can that be so? Because it's all an interpretation in the mind. If you were an avatar in a console game, in a computer game, if you were to look very deeply at something in your surroundings, let's say there was a rock or something, and you look very deeply at it, it would start to pixelate. Okay, so imagine you're an avatar in a computer game. I don't know if you ever walked up to an object and you see it pixelates. Okay, so if the avatar looked very deeply, if he was a scientist in the game and had the ability to look on the quantum level, everything would pixelate. But you know that's not real, it's just part of a program, yet it's still being perceived. When we examine our reality, it pixelates into atoms. But are the atoms really there? Is it just our reality pixelating when we look into it? Because that's what happens, because we're interacting with a load of information. But I reiterate, because some people get upset about this, they worry that reality is completely going on within their mind, therefore, and it's just them, and they're living in some sort of dream world and they're completely alone. But that's not the way I perceive it, is that we are, each individual consciousness is interacting with one information field, and it's all being decoded and perceived within a consciousness. Even our body is made up of atoms. It might not really be there. We just perceive it's there. And again, this doesn't negate your experience. Your experience is important. Your life is important. No matter the nature of the reality, it's still important, is it not? Your life has been important up to now, has it not? So we mustn't worry about that. So all that is apparent to our material senses is spirit. It says that as well in the Kybalion. Is spirit. I think that is the word for this unified field, for this energetic information-based reality. Please see the work of physicist Tom Campbell. He also explains this information-based reality too. So carrying on, which in itself is unknowable and undefinable, but which may be considered and thought of as a universal, infinite living mind. Now it says about this in the Law of One, the raw material, that creation is one infinite being that we're part of. So it says that in the Kybalion too, therefore, that we're part of a universal, infinite living mind. So it's not like a big program type, like the Matrix would be, like a coded program. It's more of a living entity. The whole of our reality, plus everything you see around you, and other humans and animals and everything, all part of this infinite living mind. But these are focused points of consciousness. The code, the energy is gathered mass or gathered focus and become a consciousness. So this chair isn't conscious, well, it is in its own way because it's part of the one infinite being, but the chair doesn't have the level of individualized consciousness that I have, because I've gathered consciousness about me and I operate as an individual, which in itself is an illusion, because we want to return to the concept of oneness being that one infinite being. I'm sorry if this is rather deep. So here we are, the Kybalion backs up what is in the Law of One, or the Law of One backs up what's in the Kybalion, is that we are part of one infinite being or universal mind. So we have science then, and the double slit experiment. Please look that up if you haven't seen about it already, that reality basically manifests when consciousness is interpreting it. So when we're looking at it, reality manifests. Apart from that, the unified field is a bunch of probabilities. So everything is a bunch of probable outcomes, so information waiting to give you the outcome because you haven't made your decisions yet. And then once the consciousness interacts with it, it comes into being. Well, it's interpreted by the mind, therefore that's what's happened. Reality is waiting for us to interact with it. It's not giving us the outcomes and what's happening. We interact with it, make our decisions, and then it becomes so. That's why the unified field is said to be made up of waves of probability, probable outcomes, probable things that are happening. So even the chair I'm sitting on would just be waves of probability, and then I come along and interact with it. It doesn't mean everything's based around me. The chair is always there in reality. As long as the chair exists, it's written into the code. But how it will behave will depend on me poking it or knocking at it. There, it wouldn't have done that unless I decided to do it. It wouldn't have bended if I hadn't decided to poke it. So the probability of it bending like that is always there. But it didn't manifest until I decided to poke it. Okay, so thought collapses the waveform function. When you've heard that, that means that the consciousness interacting with the unified field, it stops being probabilities and it is one thing, definite outcome. One definite outcome. Now, the law of attraction can come into this principle of mentalism as well, because as we are discovering on our spiritual path that we can manifest our reality for ourselves and manifest everything that's going on via our thoughts and our attitudes, our feelings. So the vibration that we're holding dictates what sort of happens to us and what attracts to us. If we have a funny thought about something, oh dear, wouldn't it be crap if this happened? Isn't it funny how it blinking well goes and happens, you know? It's because you had that thought, you know. But don't get worried about, oh, not thinking this, not thinking that, because we need to have these experiences. We're supposed to be having them. So the universe being mental, it's again us interacting with it. We're plugged into the one infinite being, which we are part of it. It is us, God, if you will, knows what we're thinking and feeling because we are it. And therefore, when we have an underlying vibration of something, it will manifest it in our reality in order for us to experience it. Let's say I'm anxious about tripping over when I go out. Creation would therefore manifest things for me to be anxious about, like an uneven ground for me to walk on or something, or someone bumping into me. So that's what happens. It manifests what we need for our learning and experience. It's part of the nature of reality. So the student may unlock the many doors of the mental and psychic temple of knowledge. So when you realise this stuff, that all is mental, that all is mind, the universe is mental, the Kybalion, once we realise all of that, then we can start to unlock the doors more and more. And I know that once this information starts to really sink down into the subconscious, which takes time, you might realise it one day, but it could take many months or even years for it to become part of your thinking. Once this starts to happen, other things start to happen. So you start to become more psychic, for example, because you intrinsically know, not just know it consciously, but intrinsically know and feel that we're all one. So you're able to heal people, you're able to actually influence others quite a bit on a mental level. You're able to know what they're going to say, you're able to share thoughts with them as if they're your own, because you're one with them. Every other person is you, because we are all one being. We are one being. We just believe we're separate. But once we firmly, intrinsically know that we are one being, we can act as one being. And those around you, especially people you get close to, you become very psychic with, and you start to have premonitions too, because you know that time is all one being. It's all one even time. It's not a line. It's more like an everything that ever has, is, or will occur all in one book, I like to say. So you can perceive the future, those little future memories you have, those little premonitions. That's just seeing what will happen, just like you see what happened in the past with a past memory. All these things start to naturally happen once you realise that we are one. And that is the principle, all is mind, the universe is mental. The principle of mentalism. So not only is our reality, our interpretation of it and how we experience it, coloured by our perceptions and our beliefs and our emotions, creating the world we live in individually, but literally all is going on within our consciousness, and it's perceived as such. There's no out there, there's no real physical. What we term as physical is just how we perceive it, which evokes notions of it being hard or something, intangible. There is no tangible. We just perceive that there is. Okay, so I've diddled with your mind enough today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this has helped in some way. And leave me and others a comment what you think about the 7 Hermetic principles, starting with the principle of mentalism. And I'm sending you much love indeed.
Support this Spiritual Awakening YouTube channel on Patreon and receive weekly bonus videos. You can also choose to receive spiritual guidance via email or spiritual sessions.
So don't forget to click subscribe if you're not already a subscriber to receive regular spiritual inspiration on your journey through life. Like and share also, because we're raising the mass vibration together. So go now in love and peace.